Are you thinking about launching a Kickstarter but worried your rewards will drain your time and more importantly your profits? Well, my friend, this episode is your blueprint before you press go, and I am thrilled to be joined by Sam from Indievelopment, as Sam has supported the marketing efforts for Kickstarter campaigns like Volunteer The Ascension, Tales of Fate, and Atomic Owl, and has raised more than $300,000 across 5,000 plus backers. And in today's conversation, we're going to be covering early bird timing strategies to spark momentum in the first 48 to 72 hours of your Kickstarter launch, digital bundles and low-cost add-ons to lift the average pledge without ballooning your dev time, physical rewards that add value without destroying your budget, and how to use pledge managers to keep fulfillment smooth and profits intact. By the end, you'll walk away with reward tiers that both excite backers and protect your time, scope, and margins. Welcome to Freaking Cool Indies. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining Freaking Cool Indies and coming on today to talk about reward tiers for Kickstarter. Now, again, reward tiers is something that is core and key to any good Kickstarter, but there is a number of occasions where even successful Kickstarters ended up, I guess, failing or falling by the wayside because the developer could just not come to fulfill some of those rewards. So that's kind of some of the things we want to talk about today. What makes a good reward, both digital, physical, some of the higher tier ones, and then honestly just talking about the philosophy behind rewards. So how can we approach tier design to build strong community, and also making sure that the budget stays intact so that you're not giving back everything that you have earned from your Kickstarter to try and get all of this fulfilled. So I guess just to start, can you walk us through some of the things that you've seen through your successful Kickstarter campaigns that you've helped indie devs with? Campaigns like Volunteer or Tales of Fate, and just what are some of the fundamental philosophies that a developer should have while designing their reward tier?
So yeah, I think when it comes to designing reward tiers, always thinking of the backer first. So who's actually backing this? And like you said, you can range from lower pricing tiers of just having the base game all the way up to thousands of dollars of having someone design something in game and really having that impact in the game with their own kind of unique design. So yeah, what's always in my mind and in the forefront of the ideas is backer first. What do they want to see? What is your audience interested in? What suits the game as well? Like what matches the vibe of what your game gives off and the tone and style of your game. That's kind of what I'm always thinking, and having them affordable for the backer. Everything that's going on now, cost of living, everything's expensive. Everyone has other priorities, so making sure that the devs getting their money's worth and their value out of making the most out of that and having the biggest return they can possibly get, but also just respecting the backer and not taking too much of their hard-earned money. And I think that way it benefits both backer and developer. You're kind of giving something to a backer, making them feel welcomed and into your community and into your game, and they get it at more of an accessible price that suits them.
Yeah. And do you typically see the price of, let's just call it tier 1 of the reward? So like getting the digital game, right, is typically your kind of basic entry tier. Do you typically see that price being the same as what ends up being the price on Steam?
Yeah, but I try to avoid that. Like Kickstarter is all about kind of having your early adopters be there first and have them feel like by getting involved first before it goes off onto Steam and consoles, that they should be rewarded by a bit more of an offer. Well, maybe not price wise, but what else can you give to them that would help them see their value in contributing early? So whether it's like maybe an exclusive in-game skin or in-game weapon skin as well, or an in-game weapon on its own, or even just other extras like including some extra digitals for free. Something that's you're giving your backer a reason to get involved early and supporting their game before you then go off and launch officially on Steam and consoles.
Gotcha. And I guess when it comes to trying to create like create the pricing, or maybe starting with tier 1, because obviously you're going to move up from there, but what's kind of the sweet spot in terms of pricing? Is it typically length of game, or how many members are on the team, like just kind of general game scope, or do you have any kind of rules, or I don't know, maybe just advice to give to developers when it comes to that pricing?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you said, like the scope of the game, so length of game, how long people will be playing for, the effort, I guess, as well for the devs to produce and develop their game. I don't really have a general rule of thumb other than asking the developers what are you going to set your game price at, and then not a lot of first time Kickstarters know that they have to maybe welcome first time backers or welcome super backers who are regular Kickstarter backers into their game first. So I'll always kind of lay out a bit of a plan of your first starting point is offering like an early bird discount. So whether that's like limited by quantity to add that kind of exclusivity to it, that urgency, or limiting it by time. I tend to go by time, so you've had your kind of your first lot of audience have enough time to back the game first, whether it's 48 to 72 hours, so they can get their hands on the early bird pricing, and then move up to maybe a 10% discount, or removing that kind of exclusive item from the reward and just having a kind of base price of 10% off, and kind of continuing that momentum for people who are now seeing the game for the first time, whether it's from Kickstarter doing like an email newsletter, or you're being featured on the Kickstarter page, or being shared across social media, or any other marketing activity you've got going on, where people are seeing it for the first time. They see, oh, we're offering a cheaper version of the game. I like the look of the game. I'll back now and get it while I can.
Very cool. And how far in advance are you typically like setting those, or maybe creating the strategy for that, right? Because there's the pre-launch of the actual Kickstarter, so that's before anyone can actually donate, but there's a page up, people can check it out, kind of remind me about this, and then it goes live. So is it kind of just like, can you update things like on the fly if need be, or are you going into, or are you helping people go into a campaign with like, all right, 72 hours, this is the price, then we're raising it here, like, we're kind of having this more transparent for the backers?
Yeah, well, I will kind of go in with like a bit like a base template of like, this is best practice, this is what Kickstarter has available through their kind of system, and then work from there. Like a lot of people tend to hide the rewards before they go live. Well, until after they go live, to add that kind of like secrecy to it. What's going to be available, what they have. But I'm all about trying to give as much information as upfront as possible. So if we're collecting like an email list, maybe having like an email that will go out a few days before and saying, check out our rewards. Here's what's available for you, or adding some sort of reward structure onto the page. So I will try get as stuck in as much as possible when working with an indie dev, studio, or publisher, and kind of guide them and offer suggestions on what we should be doing. And then it gives us enough time to think of other things along the way, make any changes. I tend to run a pre-launch for about 6 to 8 weeks. So from the second we kind of announce the Kickstarter, or we start working on the behind the scenes of a Kickstarter, we've got plenty of time to adjust our offering, to see what works. Are people not buying into the 20% discount early bird? What else can we do to bump up that kind of conversion rate and that follower interest, to increase that urgency for the first 2 to 3 days, because they're the most important. That kind of spike where you see people coming in the first few days, we really want to capture as much interest and backers, to kind of create a bit of a snowball effect. So yeah, really pushing in and making sure that the offer is right, the incentive is right, and following it through to the launch day.
Cool. And I'm guessing within those first 2 days, I'm sure that's when even the Kickstarter algorithm is kind of looking to see, all right, what's taking off, so we can, help prepare, like help flame those fires, if you will, or whatever it is, flame the fire. Yeah, I don't know if I got it right.
Fanning the flames. Yeah,
thank you. That's the one. That's what I'm looking for.
That's exactly it. It's kind of like how the algorithm would work is, as much interest or as much traffic you get to the page as possible, as many backers you can get as quickly as possible, and then you can start getting noticed by Kickstarter. Whether you've got the Projects We Love badge, get featured on the homepage, get ranked higher in the popularity on Kickstarter. Now, I'm not sure how many people are looking into those in the popularity ranking, but it's also a nice bit of social proof. Oh, we're number one or we're number two in Kickstarter's popular rank on Kickstarter, and the longer you're there for, the more likely you're going to get a bit more visibility from people who browse Kickstarter regularly. But yeah, being on the homepage, because you've shaped your own community before going live, and then it's all about trying to find new people. So being on the Kickstarter homepage, you might have someone who's interested in, I think it's in my head, 3D printers,
Yeah.
books, music, and they also might just be a gaming fan. They might just see your game on the homepage and think, "Sweet, this looks cool. I'm gonna go check it out."
Hmm. Very cool. And I guess from that community perspective, and you kind of mentioned about it before, but does Kickstarter provide you any form of like these are the emails of the people who have backed you, or do they give you any of those details? Or when you were talking about email newsletters before, that you're more so talking about what the dev might already have in their kind of whatever CRM, if you will.
That's exactly it. The second one, like Kickstarter won't provide you an audience unless you see you're doing well. I think this, I can't remember what the stat was. I think it was for every six backers you bring into the campaign, Kickstarter would bring in four. So shout out to crowdfunding nerds, I think it is. They specialize in board games. So shout out to them for that kind of start. They've managed to figure out that actually, yeah, for every six backers you bring, Kickstarter will bring in additional three or four backers, whether that's through the newsletter, the homepage, popularity ranking as well. Um, so yeah, they won't give you anything beforehand. For example, if you have your pre-launch page, they don't do any. Here's something coming soon that might be of interest to you. They should do. So if anyone from
Mhm.
Kickstarter is watching, do that. But again, in the coming soon in the coming soon page, you can rank higher in popularity. Again, if people are scoping that page out as frequently as I do, then you might get picked up there. But a lot of the pre-launch stuff is about bringing people to Kickstarter, your Kickstarter first, and then letting the effect of that audience find other people through Kickstarter.
So I want to dive into Atomic Owl, maybe is a good first one that we can kind of jump into here. So this is one of the games I know that you had worked on. It actually ended up with over 1,000 backers, which is wonderful. 1,005 to be exact, but we are over
Well,
that thousand limit, four figures, if you will. So how did a well structured tier system just kind of encourage that high of a volume?
yeah, I think it was what we had available. Like Eldar from Monster Theatre, the guy who developed Sonic Owl. Like he sent me the soundtrack. I was like, we need this on vinyl. Like this slaps. Let's get this on vinyl. My initial idea was like, let's have some like limited edition colorway. So maybe like a Kickstarter green color, or maybe some sort of purple splatter color. Again, that you can maybe add a bit of exclusivity to, like limited to 100 vinyls in that kind of colorway. So yeah, thinking about what suits the game and including that into the reward tier really helped. And then also thinking of what can we give as extra add-ons, such as limited edition skins that people can add as rewards. And then it kind of got us onto kind of a point of what can we do to get backers feel more involved. And we brainstormed the idea of having people submitting their own bird. So that was quite funny, whether they've got a bird themselves, like a parrot or a budgie or whatever, and having them bring that into the game, or their own designed bird as well. It's like a custom NPC, bringing that into the game. So yeah, we kind of managed to create a bit of like a reward structure from that, starting from the base game, low pricing, into kind of like a bit of a middle ground, and then up into the higher kind of like a few $100s to get your custom design in game.
Yeah, I know. I've seen a few Kickstarter. One of them that I backed also, they had a similar one where a big part of the game was there were cats within the game. So
Yeah,
similar to the bird one where it's like you could go and basically submit your cat or submit your dog, and they would like digitize it and kind of bring it into the game as just kind of one of the NPC cats that's like walking around the environments.
exactly. It's that. It's kind of like how can you what's the word? Immortalize? Is that the right word?
Yep.
Yeah. How
Yep.
can you immortalize something that you have an idea of, or something that is, that you love, like your cat or dog or whatever animal, and bring that into a game so they are kind of there forever. It's a kind of a nice way, just like I said at the start, like um, bringing backers more involved in your game and shaping the game.
hmm And with the reward tiers, are when you're working with a developer, are you typically kind of, let's say the three of you, as in yourself, the developer, and then the community being the third? But are you guys typically going to the community and trying to ask, what would be enticing rewards for you? What would you like to see? Or is it more so like, again, you as a marketing like a marketing consultant, let's just call it, and then the developer, you guys are the ones kind of bouncing ideas back and forth of like, hey, I think this would be great or that would be good.
Yeah, it will mainly be myself and a developer just thinking like, what have you got available in your game? What can we do to kind of push the boundaries a bit more or include something in game? But it is a good way to kind of, especially if you've got maybe like a Discord community, so something a bit more closed off and not as public as X or Instagram,
hmm
and just having like maybe showing some little previews of those rewards, like, hey, what do you think of this reward? And just gauging a bit of interest there because, they might not remember it in, 20, 30 days' time. So you can kind of
Yeah.
gauge some interest and just say, that reward didn't go down as well as we thought it would. Maybe something to not include. And just kind of just thinking, like, maybe why did your kind of community not receive that reward as well as others or as well as you wanted them to like?
hmm
And, for example, physical games, the Switch sells far better than the Switch physical sells far better than a PlayStation physical. So a lot
Yeah.
of time I'll just say, do not put your game on PlayStation physical. You will probably sell at least half of the amount as you would on Switch. So a lot of the time, stick to Switch physicals. So yeah, kind of gauging that interest and having that experience and knowledge already, bringing it to the developer, bringing it to the community, and kind of just going around that way.
Wicked. And then lastly, a part of this section here, for developers launching their first campaign, what is just one of the most important pieces of advice regarding reward tiers that you would provide someone who, this is their first time kind of diving into all of this?
Um, think of rewards that you can control within your own kind of expertise and skills. Don't go too crazy with physical rewards um, or think of physical rewards that people will actually get. I think you mentioned in some of the emails just saying like t-shirts. Do not bother with t-shirts. Yeah, people have their favorite brands of t-shirts. You know, my wardrobe is full of Carhartt. I would not go to another brand or a t-shirt or a mouse mat. People have a mouse mat already. Like Kickstarter it's a you buy now and you receive far later down the line.
Yeah.
So those kind of rewards which you can get on Amazon, you can get from your favorite um, company or whoever you follow. Just think of they actually going to be worth it and focus on something that's a bit more tangible and something that might be feel a bit more exclusive to the game, such as maybe vinyl figurine, um, vinyl record. I think vinyl records always go down well.
Yeah.
Um, and with digital rewards, like what's going to be worth your time, and is it going to be worth it for your community and potential new backers?
So I think that is a perfect segue into section two, where I did want to kind of talk through digital only rewards. Of course, like you had already kind of brought up and mentioned, digital, I think, is the lifeblood of a lot of Kickstarter campaigns and a lot of Kickstarter tier systems, just because it is significantly easier to get them to the end player, whether it's part of the game, whether it is a file that you can kind of send over, as opposed to a physical one where, again, manufactured, has to be shipped and sent and all the other things that go along with it. So I guess beyond the game itself, what are some of the most effective types of digital rewards? I know you had mentioned skins already. You had mentioned obviously something like a playable or a non-playable NPC. So what are some of the other rewards that you would recommend that an indie dev who's maybe going into this for the first time to, hey, this is going to be on my list of reward tiers?
Yeah, so like typically, and I guess best practice usually tends to be your base game, having maybe some sort of early bird version of that, whether it's limited to quantity or time, and then having your normal game reward, and then moving up to kind of like a digital bundle, so digital art book and digital soundtrack, and then there's not really too much you can put between that and then the rewards that you start bringing in when you start bringing in custom designs. It tends to be the physical, price point in the middle of that. But yeah, you kind of go from like a $20 to 27 $30 for the kind of digital bundle, and then you might want to start looking at what can we start doing for $100. Is it design an item? Is it the NPC? Is it the designer boss? Is it design a side quest? Is it have a shout out in the game in some sort of way? So one
Mm-hmm.
game I'm working on at the minute is it's very kind of like dark gothic themed Castlevania looking, and I just said, how can we get personalized messages in the game? Can we have like maybe like a side room or a room that you go into, like a puzzle room where maybe has some tombstones that people can leave messages on, whatever they want to include. So, we're kind of exploring ideas that will fit the game, will fit the vibe, and just making sure that we're making the most of digital rewards where, yeah, backers can kind of have their stamp on those at a decent decent price.
Yeah, awesome. I know Sea of Stars, obviously, game doesn't need any introductions there, but I know they did a crazy good job with their Kickstarter and even again their digital rewards. They have an in-game crypt basically with all
Mm-hmm.
of the people who added in, and I think depending on how big you or how much you donated, you have different size of different size graves and statues and tombs and stuff like that
Yeah,
with
like you
each
could have like a
person's name and stuff.
bronze, silver, gold kind of statue or platinum, whatever. Kind of a bit of bragging rights. Like, oh, I did this. I'm in the game. It's kind of like if you were to see yourself like as an extra as a film. That kind of what's the actor? He's like, oh, that's me,
Yeah.
pointing at the screen. Oh my god, Leonardo DiCaprio. I can't remember what film it is, but yeah, he's got a drink in his hand. He's like,
Once
there I
upon a
am.
time in Once upon a time in
That's
Hollywood.
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. So yeah, it's like that. I mean, some other games, for example. So shout out to Outbound.
Hmm.
They're like I think it's like a cozy camping game where you drive around in a little van and you do it up and some sort of like kind of like add little features to it. But they were able to add a lot of digital add-ons. So add-ons are things you can add on as an extra to your reward. So maybe it could be, yeah, I want to just buy the base game, but then I want to add on X and Y. So they had a lot of good add-ons that helped bring in personalized items. Well, not personalized, but for example, would be like a rear view mirror dangly thing, or have a bobblehead on the front of the car, or they had one where backers could help unlock like pets, and it might have been like a kind of I think a pink dog or something. So just adding these add-ons for an extra $5 to $7. If someone gets two, you've got an extra $10 out of them. So you've sold the base game for 20, two digital add-ons, $5 each. You've then managed to get $30 out of the backer, which increases your average pledge price, which is great, and gets you more money in the end.
Obviously, the more money, the better. The higher the average pledge price. I'm also guessing Kickstarter will reward people for campaigns that are kind of doing better on that standpoint. But at the end of the day, even with a digital something, whether it is a something that goes on a dashboard or a crypt, that's still development time that needs to go into it. So, do you have any tips about even just budgeting how many rewards you can give away, or just making sure that the dev knows that, like, again, each of these things that you're offering, like, you still need to go back and create them, whether it's someone's cat or so, putting people's names in a tomb crypt.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I think it's just about managing your time on. each item, how much time are you going to commit to one of those? Kind of figure out your value and your worth from of that time and bringing that into the game, and setting the price point that way. But it is tough. Like you don't really want to take the piss too much and really overcharge and overprice these add-ons for your bag, especially for such like little extras. You don't want to kind of go down that like kind of microtransaction route, and start absolutely milking your backers for their hard-earned money. But obviously having that something that is of value to a backer. Yeah, I think it's just about managing your time and making sure that however many of these, higher tier rewards, where they become more custom and more personalized, just yeah, maybe give a few trial runs, and figure out your how much should maybe charge an hour, or um, I'll figure out just that I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. Doing a like it's like, okay, I'm thinking about adding this into the game as a reward. Let me try to create five of them, right, and
Yeah,
see how much time that takes. Is it super? Can I get it done, or can I create a script that, you know what I mean, can kind of automate this or help this out, or is this
exactly.
something that I need to like sit down and spend an hour for each one? In which case, doing 150 of them, 200 of them, 500 of them, is that even like feasible?
Yeah, exactly.
Wicked. And then I guess, is there any other kind of hidden low cost digital rewards of something that we maybe haven't touched base on that you wanted to bring up, or have we kind of hit some of the better ones that a developer might already want to be considering?
Yeah, I think we have hit on the best ones. A lot of them are just what can someone bring to my game? What can they design that will stay in the game? I think that tends to be it. I've not really seen anything that's too out there. Again, I think a lot of them, which have kind of become a bit of a best practice, and ones that you see repeatedly on pages, are ones that don't take maybe too much time, or ones that are within the limits of what the developer can and cannot do. Um, yeah, I think we've definitely hit on a lot of those points of making sure that they are, you know, customizable, uh, with backer's own design, but managing your time.
And for something like one of the digital art book, do you have any tools that you recommend, or just like good ways of getting that created to be, designed nicely and be able to kind of get that shipped out to people?
Design wise, for making a digital art book, I've no clue. I've never made a digital art book. Um, ooh. In terms of like shipping it out to people, or getting it, the digital reward in the hands of backers, there's Kickstarter's pledge manager tool, which we might touch on a few times, or there's
Yeah.
backer kit. They have a pledge manager tool, which they are the original pledge manager tool, which other people have kind of replicated. That is kind of just like I guess, yeah, CRM kind of system where you upload your Kickstarter data. It will get all the backers information for you. It will do some upsell with add-ons, and that way I think you can upload your digital rewards into maybe like an Excel spreadsheet and distribute it that way. So you're able to know who's got what and allocate rewards and codes to backers. But in terms of making digital art book, PDF, some sort of
Yeah, yeah,
PDF.
yeah. Go to Fiverr, get someone to help
Yeah,
create it there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I tend to
Wh-
do just more of like just a flip book, of just maybe you know one image per page. But there are ways, I guess, as well, where you can maybe just spice up or jazz up the design of the page, and have a few different images on there. There's plenty of tools. Canva is a free tool where you can probably have this kind of thing, design this kind of thing. I assume that developers are actually probably quite skilled in maybe Photoshop or any other tools that they're used to, that they can make that kind of stuff. Yeah, everyone loves an art book. I'd love it. I definitely love a physical art book. So we can probably get onto that when we talk about physical rewards.
Yeah, and for the actual sending out keys, right? So either whether it's, sorry, like beta or early access, or otherwise once the game's set out, that's not something that you can do on Kickstarter. You need to correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be something like a key mailer or a different tool, in which case you would be sending that out, or would the Kickstarter tool that you had kind of spoken about before, is that able to kind of send keys out to the individuals?
It's the Kickstarter pledge manager tool. So annoyingly, like when you request keys from Steam, they kind of become like I think it's like a free or a gifted kind of code. And I assume you'll receive a bunch of different, randomized kind of codes, which you would then upload into that CRM, and it will then distribute those codes. Annoyingly, like what it's a bit of a downside to doing a Kickstarter is, let's say you've sold 700 digital base games. Those 700 players then can't leave a review on Steam. So you're kind of missing out on the potential of 700 reviews there. But in the exchange of, these people have helped shape your game early. They've given you the funds to continue the development for the next year or year and a half or 2 years. So
Gotcha.
yeah, a bit of a trade off, and just maybe it's just a bit of a flag for people who weren't aware of that. Is that, yeah, if you get these keys from Steam that you're going to then distribute outside of the platform, you can't then leave a review.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then I guess kind of wrapping up on the digital side, when it just comes to more of the general communication around, successful campaigns, or just, hey, the reward is coming. Do you have any best practices of how often you should be communicating with the backers, or is it like the more the better is just maybe the easiest route?
I wouldn't say the more the better, but as long as your update has meaning and value to it. Really good example is Sean Young, who has just released or just finished Monster Patch. Uh, Check out that Kickstarter page. That is a masterclass in how to handle a Kickstarter. I think he's done a fair few heavily digital rewards. But ever since finishing his Kickstarter, he's doing a lot of kind of like behind the scene updates of how the game's coming along, progress of maybe some sort of character sprite, updates of where the backers' kind of contribution to the game has come in. So just kind of, it's essentially like a blog, like the Kickstarter update tool, where it'll keep your kind of like inner community of Kickstarter backers in the loop. Keeping them updated updated on the progress. You don't want to leave them in the dark for too long. Um, you know, that kind of gives a bit of uncertainty to your backers, like, what's going on, where's the game. But yeah, using the Kickstarter update is a great way just to kind of keep updating people on the progress of the game, and showing them how, you know maybe other people's input has shaped the game, and shown some of that off as well.
Very wicked. And once it's all kind of said and done, do you get to keep the emails of the backers so that you can continue to reach out to them?
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
Oh,
you
that's
can access
wicked.
like a bit of a back end report of. It used to be the old way of Kickstarter, giving you the information of all the backers. They didn't used to have a pledge tool. It used to be that you would go to BackerKit or another third party pledge manager. Kickstarter have, I think it was either this year or last year, where Kickstarter brought in their own pledge manager. But yeah, it used to
Wicked.
be a backer report where you download, again, like an Excel spreadsheet file that just had name, address, email, what was included in the reward. But yeah, it gives you the chance to download those and maybe do a bit of like email communication with them there. Upload
Yeah,
them into your email list and just say, hey, here's the update on Kickstarter if you haven't seen it. Again, thanks for being a backer. Maybe giving them some regular updates outside of the Kickstarter community side of things,
definitely.
and keeping comms going there.
Yeah, definitely. I myself am a huge fan of email newsletters, or just being able to have someone, like, have a dev be able to continue to communicate to their community that way. So yeah, you kind of lose the ability to get reviews from the Kickstarter, but you also are able to gain, a thousand people to your newsletter campaign. In which case, when it comes to game two or game three or DLC or just whatever it ends up being, now you have those people kind of available to you to communicate with.
Exactly. Yeah, once your game's out and ready, a bit of an email burst to say our game is now on Steam, our game is now on console.
Yeah,
We've already backed it anyway, but just having them in that kind of CRM system is a great help. And yeah, just keeping them in the loop with, like you said, any DLC updates as well. Trying to get that upsell. If you have maybe leftover merch from the Kickstarter, maybe setting up your own Shopify store and shifting some of the merch that way.
Very wicked, very wicked. All right, so speaking of merch, Sam, it's time to jump into the good stuff. It's time to jump into the
Yeah.
physical rewards. And again, I think there is a lot of good. I think a lot of people, myself included, do Kickstarters to try and get some of that exclusive stuff. Again, I have been suckered into a vinyl or two in my days, but what what are some of the best physical merchandise that you have seen, or maybe that you would recommend?
Ooh, best merchandise I've seen. I would say kind of like the kind of the vinyl figurines are the best I've seen. Like especially if you get like some of the high quality ones. They look great. They're a kind of good kind of shelf piece to have. You're kind of owning it's a bit of like memorabilia. It's a great item just to kind of keep on the side and just kind of see it there. So I've backed a few games. Yeah, and again gone for the add-ons. So rather than having like a big bundle of different rewards. I've just gone, I want the game and I want the vinyl figurine. Sure, sometimes if you do like a collector's bundle, you might get a few of those rewards at a discounted price, but I don't want the pin set, the stickers, the whatever else is included in those. I just want what I like. So I might go out the way and actually buy, yeah, the base game and a vinyl figurine, and it might come close to a collector's bundle, but I know I've got the rewards that I want. But I think, yeah, a kind of what Kickstarter should be doing is thinking, okay, what is my game? What can I bring to a physical world? And go from there. So, I really like the idea of maybe it might be a bit out there, but going for like a really like higher tier reward of some sort of like massive sword or some sort of weapon. Like, yeah, it might be expensive and maybe like a bit of a one off, but it could be really cool of maybe just having like, a character's got a great sword. Wicked. Let's get some massive either 3D printed or however you can get something made of like a one off or maybe limited to five or something of some huge piece of memorabilia.
I could see that being very, very, very cool, especially even from a social perspective. After, right, whoever purchases it, ideally, they could take a picture of it, post it on social media. Again, another good way of bringing some of that additional hype, and that additional attention to the game.
But yeah, that's exactly it. A bit of like I guess social proofing, but in a fun way. Let's
Mhm.
imagine you got a giant great sword and someone's just swinging that around, and you're like, hell yeah, that's in my game, and he's got it.
Yeah, that's wicked. And for something like either the vinyl figure or the vinyl record, do you have any recommendations about, whether it's a good website, good product, or good company, somewhere to make that kind of fulfilled and get those created?
Sure, I would. It depends how you want to manage the kind of the shipping and distribution kind of side of things. Like, do you want to do it just at home? Like, have you got enough space to store a box of 300 odd vinyls? Um, if so, go locally. Like, maybe find somewhere local. Yeah, I've managed to through friends find a place that will do vinyl records at a pretty decent price. And I think the more local you go, the more likely you can get a decent price. And maybe even if it is a proper local that maybe doesn't have much of a website presence. For example, I think with Atomic Hour, I think they did this. I think they kind of struck a bit of a deal with the people they went with. I managed to find like a record or like a vinyl producer in Denver and said, these guys are near you, like strike up a conversation. And I think they handled the pressing, when you press vinyls, and then also handled the shipping. So it took it out of Eldar's hand, and they gave them the money for shipping. And I think, yeah, they managed to get them sent out that way. So super helpful to kind of go local, or yeah, you could probably go online and maybe find some sort of like direct to consumer kind of thing. I've not found one of those yet, but yeah, shop local.
Okay, perfect. And once again, I'm guessing all of those things should be done prior to even just launching your pre-launch, or at least maybe showing what things look like, right? Like you don't want to find out that a vinyl will cost you $60 and the vinyl is starting on like the $50 tier, right? Like we you want to make sure that you're pricing out all of these and then figuring out, okay, well, if you add in shipping, if you add in returns, maybe if you add in whatever it all ends up being, right? You still want to kind of be in the green.
100%. Yeah, it'd be a bit of a kick in the teeth if you didn't do that. Definitely look at the weight of a vinyl, how much that might cost to ship. and then maybe including that in some sort of bundle that you might have to do if you are going for a few physical rewards, making sure that you are charging enough for shipping, because shipping will eat into your main costs. You can charge shipping at the end of a Kickstarter campaign rather than doing it at the start, which is super helpful. But yeah, make sure you're locking in those kind of quotes from whoever you are speaking to, getting the weights, and maybe looking at how much that might cost for UK Royal Mail or DHL or whoever else can do that kind of stuff. You can get quotes by putting in the rough cost of how much things weigh, and then figuring it out from there. But yeah, if you kind of figure out that, oh, shipping's maybe a bit too expensive and I don't want to at the end of the Kickstarter charge another $15-20 for shipping, maybe something to reconsider.
Yeah, because again, I'm sure even like it's one thing. Oh, if you're in the States and you're shipping domestically, or if you're in the States you're sending to Canada, that's one thing. But if you're sending it over to Australia or South Africa, or like places where shipping, I'm sure, kind of ramps up very fast, trying to get to a couple different places in the world.
It will do. Luckily, I think majority of the campaigns I've worked on, I'd probably say like at least 80 or 85% of the backers are from the US. So if you are a US based, developer and whatnot, great. What I'm working with right now is based in Japan, so we're trying to just navigate those costs of, okay, do we work with a third party who can handle this kind of physical publishing? We're talking to some physical publishers at the moment who handle the manufacturing, the distribution, the shipping, and then maybe saying, what else do you guys offer? We want to do a vinyl, we want to do an art book. So we need to make sure, we're not shipping those from all these different places. So can we sort something out where you guys handle that as well? So one thing to consider.
Yeah, and I'm guessing if a dev doesn't want to go that route, would you still recommend Kickstarter for someone who maybe doesn't want to, do these physical fulfillments? Because it does sound like basically a second job to all of this. Is getting things made, getting things sent, getting things shipped. Is still a digital only campaign of a viable campaign for people?
It is. If you haven't put any kind of advertising budget or marketing into a campaign, and you've done it all organically, and you've got a bit of like a really engaged and driven community, great, you can probably go down that route. Or if you have a small budget and use that, it's still probably viable just to do a digital only, and maybe think of, okay, how can I get someone to spend $70 rather than $20? What can I include in the game? Looking back at those add-ons, looking back at digital bundles and including more, and trying to scale up that way. You can definitely still do a digital only campaign, but I think just physical is just exploring potential options of giving backers some sort of piece of the game. Not a lot of games will have these kind of little rewards that you can pick up and go. So Kickstarter kind of gives you that opportunity of having, I guess, a merch store. If you just go directly to Steam, the marketplace is on Steam. Like, sure, you can direct people to, or your community to other stores like the Shopify store, but you're taking people all over the place. Whereas Kickstarter, you've got 32 days, however how long you set it, and it's all in one place. You have all your offers on show, your rewards on show, and just try and entice people that way with great value for money and great value over reward.
Yeah, awesome. So just to kind of put a nice bow on this, make sure that I got all of this correct. So for the physical, we want to create a budget prior to doing your campaign, and understanding, all right, of our marketing budget, or of our, let's call it, Kickstarter budget, this is how much we're going to put towards fulfillment and creation of physical, as well as obviously digital. And then from there, of doing some Google searches, trying to figure out, where can I create pins? Where could I get stickers made? Where can I have plush made? Things along those lines should be done prior, so that you have a good understanding about what that is. then from there you're kind of taking all of that information and figuring out, all right, if I want to include this bundle, which is going to have a vinyl and a plushie, it is going to be X amount because, again, a vinyl costs this much, a plushie costs that much, and I want to make sure that everything is making sense from a dollar perspective.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, one of the good things about Kickstarter is that it's like people are buying now and not receiving the rewards until later down the line. So
Mm,
prices might change, and that kind of thing. So you can maybe don't have to factor in your budget from the get go, but something to still consider that later down the line. I need to have some budget aside for shipping and not spend all the money. Like you need to remember that in a year's time, you're going to have those physical rewards that need shipping out, and they need distributing that way. Like the vinyl record, you're gonna have to buy a vinyl postage kind of thing for that. You're gonna have to pad it out if it's going overseas. So is that. What else was there? You touched on some really good points. What was the second point you said?
So making sure you understand the fulfillment cost, and then from there creating the, like, again, it's like if I add two things together, this is what it's going to make up.
Yeah, I think I can go back to the first point. And I think actually one of the points I want to touch on is just locking in your potential partners. Yeah, I think that's the second point. Locking in your potential partners for for vinyl figurine, for the vinyl, because things can change. You might maybe add a disclaimer that this is not the final artwork.
Yeah.
One thing to watch out for is if you can't produce physical copies, do not promise physical copies. Like there are some physical publishers out there that will want to work with you, or be happy to work with you and be helpful in that way. But one thing I've learned in the last few months actually is if you want to create physical Switch copies, you're looking at a minimum of 5,000 cartridges.
Okay.
And then the rest of the costs come with that as well. So yeah, the casing, the inlays, maybe a manual and something like that. So if you're promising physicals, start talking to physical publishers as early as possible and locking in kind of those deals that you've got. Because if it comes to maybe selling, we're going to do a physical for Switch, a few months down the line you've still not got that in and locked that deal in, what are you going to do when it comes to the time of actually needing to give them to your backers?
And I guess, like, where I'm see the separation with the physical of the Switch. Like if you need 5,000 backers, or if you need 5,000 copies made, let's say, but you don't know how well your Kickstarter is going to do, like how do you kind of mitigate that gap?
A lot of these, or say some of these physical publishers will take the risk,
Okay.
and they will then continue to sell the game afterwards. It depends on their deal and what they kind of want to do with your game, and if they want to take that risk. So definitely worth scouting some out and having a Google of how you can reach out to these physical publishers. Not every physical publisher will want to take that risk, but there's some out there that will say, "Yep, we will handle the costs. You will get paid X amount per game sold, but we will handle everything, including the remaining copies sold at the end of your Kickstarter." Because I say, you never know if you're going to sell 200, 300, 400 into maybe hopefully the thousands.
Yeah.
But I guess the good thing is, you might have multiple reward tiers that will include a physical copy. You're not just selling a base copy on its own. You might have collector's bundle. You might include a physical copy in some of the higher tier rewards. But that's where maybe things might get a bit more complicated. You might have someone that might want to invest in the NPC kind of creation, but you've included a physical copy in there. So a bit of a flag to watch out for there is if you're doing kind of these digital rewards, do you need to bundle everything in of the reward previous to that,
Yeah.
or do you maybe have it as an add-on where a backer might want the physical copy with that digital item they're getting?
Very, very cool. Yeah, and I know a couple really great physical publishers, if you will. So there's limited run games, there's super rare games, and then I Am 8-Bit. I know are three that are, I would probably say, on the larger scale of companies that can really help to get those things pushed out and created for you as well. So for anyone listening who might want to go that route, I think those are three companies to at least start with, and then you can kind of deduce down from there if any of them would be great to partner with.
Yeah, they're definitely I guess the big three, who would probably give you a bit more information if you were to, if you know, as a dev, you were to reach out to them and say, how do you work? How do you do things? But shout out some small ones, including Premium Edition games, Pix and Love, and Game Theory. I've been speaking to those guys lately, so definitely, maybe ones that maybe a tad bit under the radar, but always worth speaking to.
Absolutely, and the links to all those websites will be in the description below for anyone who wants to jump out and check out those works, because we got to support the little guys. They're
Yeah,
definitely the way to go.
yeah, they're the backbone. They're kind of like the grassroots. Like that's the indie life. It's kind of if there weren't indie games, what would there be? You just
Yeah,
have
a
Triple
thousand
A.
percent.
Nah.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the conversation, but I wanted to take a quick second just to tell you about today's sponsor, me. Well, actually, more specifically, the 7-day marketing foundations challenge that I have put together. So, if you've gotten this far in the podcast, then I know that you are serious about becoming an indiepreneur and building a strong marketing foundation around your game. So, I have a challenge for you. Give me 20 minutes a day for the next 7 days, and I will give you a marketing system that actually works. Each day builds upon the last, and throughout the 7 days, we're going to be doing things like defining your ideal player, crafting a killer pitch, optimizing your Steam page, and building an outreach list, as well as sending some emails with some proven and provided templates. Look, there's no overwhelm, just small daily wins that will compound into real results. So if you want to learn more, check out the link below in the description, and I cannot wait to cheer you on. Besides that, have a great rest of your day, and let's get back to the episode. We have our digitals, we have our physicals, but now let's jump into the final tier of all of this, and this is the high ticket item. These are items where typically, it's either one of one or one of three, one of five maybe. I've seen everything from we'll fly you down and you get to meet the team to, again, like what we talked about before of creating like a big ass sword and just doing something that is very hyper specific and only limited to one or two people who do want to back the $500, $1,000, $2,000. So it is not for the general public by any means, but what, in your opinion, what is the purpose of this high ticket item?
Yeah, good question. I guess it's to kind of add that exclusivity and really going down into more of like your core hardcore backer. This person might have actually come from your core community, maybe from not from an ad. These actually might be regular Kickstarter backers who tend to look out for these kind of rewards, who will then kind of scope those out and if they're worth it or not. You mentioned flying someone out into the studio. Great. Prices might change in a year or so time. If you're make sure you're an extrovert kind of person, you don't want to bring someone over and they kind of be a bit, maybe if you're an introvert. I'm a bit of an introvert myself. um like I tend to like smaller kind of gatherings and shy away from bigger crowds. Shy away from being a face on a camera, so this is completely new to me. But yeah, if you can't promise a great experience and someone spent thousands on this kind of, you know, being flown out, hotel, hanging out with the guys, going for food or something, you want to make sure you're giving them a good time. And if you can't kind of live up to that, think of other ways to um, bring in those high tier rewards.
And in your experience, like, do you have, I guess, any wisdom to provide when trying to create these large ticket items? Like, I'm looking right now on the Kickstarter page for Volunteer, and there is a two of two of a $7,000 reward, right? There's one for $5,000. Like, these big experiences. How do you kind of come up with these ones here? And then again, what do you do when someone does click buy?
I think these kind of come from more of um, the brain of the developer. What can they offer as an experience to a backer that they might have thought of already, that they've seen others do on Kickstarter, maybe want to do something similar. Um, I try to I myself kind of try to focus on more on like the more accessible rewards and thinking more of the creative rewards, where these kind of like big experiences, we'll talk about those. Um, but I like to try to be a bit more grounded in, you know, let's not take the piss too much.
Hmm.
Let's make sure people can afford this, and let's not jump from a few hundred to a few thousand.
Hmm.
And yeah, I like to try and keep it that way, but I try to leave those bigger ones up to the dev themselves of what they can accommodate to these kind of backers, and we'll think of ideas there. Because yeah, sure, you come hang down at the studio, let's go out for food, let's go on a night out, let's be friends. It could be a great time, but you guys are mainly handling and dealing with that one when the time comes.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess one thing that I might add, even add in for any of the, help me design an NPC or help me design just like an enemy, a character, whatever those ones end up being. For the developer, I also think that's a really good opportunity to once again create more of that social proof towards it, right? If you have a devlog or if you have an email newsletter, it's kind of like you can record that whole process and make an episode out of it. It's just another way of kind of showing that community building side of it, even if it is a larger ticket item. Like I think that would be a really cool behind the scenes for someone to show of like, hey, this is how me and Sam built the third boss in the game because he was one of my high ticket items, right? Or my high ticket backers, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of doing it because it's you have to kind of start a concept and then I guess thinking of ideas, brainstorming ideas. But a backer has paid X amount for that, so you want to kind of give them as much free will as possible for them to give you your ideas, and then you, as the developer, sketch them out. Is this what you think? Oh no, I didn't. I don't like that idea. Go back to the drawing board. So again, it's kind of one of those rewards where you're probably going to be putting a lot of time into this. There's going to be a lot of one-on-one discussions with your either your team and the backer or just you and the backer. So making sure you can actually give them that time as well. So if it's someone, for example, developer in Japan, but the backer in maybe um, um, well, West Coast, the time difference might be a bit too drastic there. I'm not too sure, or it might be okay. You might be able to find some sort of sweet spot. But then, if you're only managing to give them like half an hour of your day, it might be a bit disappointing for that backer. So, yeah, making sure that they are feeling really included is super important, and making sure they're heard, and giving them the kind of the free reins and free will of their original idea, while having your kind of artistic kind of truth and vision and making sure it fits the tone and style of the game. You know, if we're on about that kind of gothic Castlevania kind of looking game, it can't be added in like a cute cat kind of thing, kind of some sort of like anime kind of cat, But if that's what the backer wants, maybe you've got to manage some expectations or give them what they want. You might be playing that kind of dark gothic game, and all of a sudden this cute cat comes out of nowhere. And you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Give them a secret room. It could be a fun kind of Easter egg kind of thing that they have to go find and scope out. And you're thinking, what what have I just got in? Like, what's going on? But yeah, they're adding their own mark, their own stamp on the game, which I think is great.
Yeah, I could definitely get behind that, and I'm sure there's going to always be that fine line in that working with someone else who has paid, and now it's like, okay, well, this is what I want, and you need, I think, working together and figuring out a design that both works for the backer as well as for the developer who wants to make sure that whatever that NPC or whatever that boss is kind of fits in the realm of the game, right? And again, I have not obviously experience any of this, but I could imagine going in to the backer and at least providing some guardrails or guidelines. Hey, this is going to be for this boss. Here's the general, this is where we're working from the game perspective. And now let's pick colors. Let's pick whatever it is, attack, move patterns, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, there's definitely that. You're right. Guardrails, I think letting them guard the boundaries of those guardrails as well, because otherwise you might have backed something that you think you've got free reign over, but then you might have a brief that says, exactly like you said, um, what do you want the boss pattern to be? Do you want it to be A, B, C, or D? What kind of colors do you want to use? A, B, C, or D? It might be a bit too. It might be a bit disappointing for the backer that might be spending hundreds into the few thousands for that. So yeah, making it a fair balance would be the right move for that.
Yeah, wicked. Awesome, Sam. Is there anything else reward related that, either we missed that you want to double tap on, that you want to kind of go through, or anything else that you think would be helpful for the audience?
I think just get creative, think outside the box, but then also see what is popular with Kickstarter campaigns. I think again, kind of some of the points I've kind of touched on is making sure it's like value for money. I remember seeing one game and it must have been like $400. It was like design a hat. I was like, no one's designing a hat for $400. That's too much. Maybe $100, fair enough. And if you lower that price point and you set it to 10, you've got $1,000 right there from having some sort of stamp that someone's put on the game of a customized hat, whether it's how silly or serious as it is, and bringing that extra $1,000 of revenue for the base game, maybe a few digital goodies, and the time that it's taken to bring in that into the game. Yeah, that would be, I think, my kind of go tos is explore what's possible, keep it within your boundaries and limits of what you can actually do, and have a look at other Kickstarters to see what they're doing.
All right, my friend. So before I let you out of here, there is something that we do with all of our guests here on Freaking Cool Indies, and it is to allow you to shout out from the rooftop and give flowers to an indie dev, an indie studio, an indie game that maybe you've been loving, or just one that's on your radar that you're really excited to see come out. So again, I personally think it's very important to pay it forward, and I always want to make sure that we have some time in each episode. So I will pass the baton over to you, and I'll let you kind of give a shout out to an indie game that you've been loving.
Yeah, I'm going to do two. The first one's been really quick, and it's one I worked on. Volunteer The Ascension. I think it's probably going to be one of the best Metroidvanias out there. Probably biased because I've worked on it, but honestly, the scope of the game is amazing. There's so much potential there. It's so vibrant. It's great. I'm super excited for that game. And the second one, I've already touched on this, is Sean Young and Monster Patch. That is an absolute masterclass of how to run a Kickstarter campaign. Already dedicated community of, I think he had maybe like 6 or 7 Kickstarters already. So he's kind of managed to scale up to this kind of really strong audience of backers ready to go. And yeah, Monster Patch, it looked very different to the stuff that he's usually done. It's this kind of like monster tamer farm kind of simulatory kind of thing. So like Pokemon meets some sort of farming game where it's like 2D sprite pixel kind of art. Yeah, absolute masterclass in how to manage a Kickstarter. Because once you're live, it's like 30 days to keep the momentum going, and he
Yeah.
nailed it. So if you were to ever look at a Kickstarter for reference, that's the one you should be looking at.
Wicked, 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 wicked. And lastly, where can the people find you, and maybe tell us a little bit more about Indievelopment and what you offer in your services and how you can help these amazing indie devs listening to the podcast?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm Sam from the UK. Yeah, you can find me at a lot of my socials are something in development. So it might be Sam at Indievelopment or Sam underscore Indievelopment. Website is indievelopment.uk, and that will probably link out to all my socials. I'm mainly more active on X, Threads, and Blue Sky. I prefer the more text based kind of posts. Instagram and TikTok I don't touch too much, but I'm more of a stalker, not a stalker. I'm more of a browser on those kind of things.
A lurker, I think, is
A
the
lurker, that's the word.
yeah.
That's the word. I'm more of a lurker. Yeah, I don't get too heavily engaged in those. I don't like creating videos. I might have to start doing it though. Help boost up, some sort of visibility. But yeah, you can find me on all of those. But yeah, I also do. Main background is digital marketing, Kickstarters. Feel free to drop me a message if you have a Kickstarter and you just want tips and advice. My DMs are always open. If you have an advertising budget and you're not sure what to do with it, give me a message. I mainly do, paid digital advertising, ad design, and Kickstarter kind of consultant and management. But I like to kind of bundle it all into one package of you're going to get me as part of your team, not just a market or an agency. I want the best for your indie game. I understand how tough it is for indie devs, indie studios, indie publishers to get that visibility, to want what they're after. So yeah, I'm always all in. I'm always 100% when it comes to working with games.
Wicked. And again, everything will be in the description below. So if you want to get in touch with Sam, which I highly recommend, like he said, he doesn't just do obviously reward tiers, the whole scope of ads and everything else. So check out his website. It is great. And he's already worked on a bunch of really wicked games. Fun fact, I actually, far before knowing you, connecting with you, anything else, I have actually backed Volunteer. That was, I don't know if I have, it doesn't show me the day that I did back it, but I do have, I'm looking at my my backer page right now, and I actually am very, very excited for that one there, because like you said, just watching the trailer of it, it looks wicked, and the scope of the map itself just makes my Metroidvania like so happy. So as you can see, I got my Samuses and everything back there. So Metroidvania is that makes my heart very, very happy.
Love it. Yep, cannot wait.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you very much for jumping on, talking reward tiers with us. And once again, I am very, very thankful for having you on. You are officially a freaking cool indie. This is my little fake gavel. I still got to get a gavel. It's fine. So I still got to get it. Thank you very much. Thank you. So Sam, you are the best. For our listeners, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And like you said, anything you need, just check the comments below. And we are always here to be in touch. So that's it. Everyone have a good day. Adios. Talk to you soon and see you on the next one. Bye now.